Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's Business Success webinar series. My name is Alicia Field, and I'm the director of the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome you again to 3 free strategies to improve your online presence. So before we get started, I just want to quickly thank our annual sponsors, who you'll see here on our screen. Got our strategic sponsors, our visionary sponsors, as well as our advocate sponsors. I'd also like to thank the founding sponsors of our Business Success webinar series. We have the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, BEI, as well as Reston Community Center. So the Fairfax County EDA has recently launched its Working in Northern Virginia website. At workinnorthernvirginia.com, you'll see it on here. This new initiative allows individuals looking for employment to find the companies in a region who are hiring. The site allows users to search jobs by industry sector, and to explore demographic information for the various communities. Also, we're joined by today's sponsors from Reston Community. We actually have Bibi Nguyen here to say a few words. Bibi, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you, Alicia. It's a pleasure for me to be with the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce today. We're very proud of our relationship and our partnership with GRCC. We value our connections with our business community immensely, and we wish that everybody is doing well during this pandemic as we navigate it together. The Community Center builds community for all of Reston, and thus we extend all of our benefits to not only our residents, but our employees as well. And that means discounts and priority registration for all of our programs and services, including our award-winning summer camp programs, arts performances in our professional theater, the Center Stage, and hundreds of free outdoor concerts all throughout Reston. And if you haven't, you have to stop by and check out our new renovated aquatic center with 2 new pools and hundreds of programs and for all ages and interests. So we encourage you to visit our website, restoncommunitycenter.com. And at the present, with COVID-19, we're currently closed, but we're looking to reopen after July. And we are hoping to welcome all of you to our community center. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Bibi. And we are also joined today by Ellen Jennings from BEI. Ellen, if you would say a few words, please.
Sure, thanks, Alicia. Glad to be here. This has been a terrific webinar series. I think it's a great time of the week. After this, it's kind of the weekend after this webinar. And we have a beautiful day out there. BEI is an IT support company. We do the support for the Chamber. We've been a member of the Chamber since 2003. Unbelievable. And we've been providing IT support to the Chamber since 2009. So I would just like to highlight to everyone right now that this is a particularly difficult time in terms of cybersecurity, and that everyone should be exercising care and watching where you click, where you go, what you allow onto your computer, with people working from home and kind of scrambling, mixing roles. I think I know there's a lot of people out there with kids at home who are really doing lots and lots of multitasking right now. So I'd like to ask everybody to really be very, very careful. And we'll send out with the follow-up mail from Alicia some tools that people can use in terms of doing online training, fake phishing campaigns, and things like that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the webinar.
Great, thank you, Ellen. Really appreciate those words and your support as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our presenters. We're pleased to have today Chris Fluck, Colin May, and Catherine Moore from KME.digital here to give us some tips and tricks on how to maximize your online exposure. So Colin, we'll start with you.
Awesome, yeah. So I'm Colin May. I'm the Director of Business Development at KME.digital. We designed this webinar in effort to provide a few free tips, tricks, to use in the digital marketing space and improve your overall online presence. If you could advance the slide, Alicia. So a little bit about KME. So we're a local digital marketing agency. We work with people in the B2B, commercial retail, and GovCon space, and some of the services that we provide. And if you could just advance through these, Alicia, as well. Search engine optimization, pay-per-click management. We do strategic web development, security and hosting, email marketing campaigns, and then creative design and branding support. Alicia, if you could just continue to advance. Bear with us, everyone. So the next slide. A bit about our presenters. So today you're going to be hearing from Catherine Moore, who oversees our content development. Me, but you've heard enough from me already. And then there's Chris Fluke, who is well versed in search engine optimization and pay-per-click strategy, who's going to be talking about reaching out for reviews. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine.
Thanks, Colin. So today our first strategy is evaluating your content. So content is anything on your site from media to text. So that includes any images, videos, blogs, all the way down to your About Us pages and service and product descriptions. So the first thing you want to do when you do a content evaluation is first identify your purpose. So Alicia, if you go to the next slide, we'll take a look at identifying your purpose. So right now, a lot of businesses are experiencing some slower times than usual. We encourage you to take use of this time by doing a content evaluation. So COVID-19 is a great excuse to do an ad hoc content evaluation. Another purpose could be any updates or changes in your business. So, any rebranding or new product or service offerings you have, take a fresh look at your content. And then as you go through these ad hoc evaluations, try to create a repeatable process. So that way in the future, you can regularly maintain the content on your site. So once you've identified your purpose, you want to make an inventory of your content. So make a list of all the content on your site and any relevant details for each piece. So where does it live on your site? What format is it in, etc. You can just dump these into an Excel spreadsheet and keep track of them there. I always like to encourage you to put the date that you put it up on your site. This just makes it easier to, at a glance, see when was content last pushed on your site? Have you done an evaluation recently? Does this content need updates? All of that kind of stuff is just going to help you in the future. So once you've got that inventory down, you want to take a look at some of the metrics attached to each piece of content. So log the relevant data. How many visitors has it gotten? How much time are those visitors spending on the page? Has it gotten any conversions? These could be likes, shares, subscriptions, downloads, etc. And then you want to give everything a score. So how well is it serving its intended audience? How well is it serving its intended purpose? Brand awareness is a good purpose for content. So look for visitors, shares, conversions. You want to be looking for downloads, form submissions, etc. At KME, we regularly evaluate the content for our clients. We're looking at things like bounce rates, average time on page, most popular pages on your site. All of those metrics help us determine if our content is being effective and if we need to change things up. So once you've given everything a score, you then want to take a look at your best performing content. So what format is it in? What's the tone or persona of the content? Where does it live on your site? Make a list of all of this stuff and use this as the standard for any future content you're pushing out, as you can place a pretty safe bet that pushing out content in this format is going to get you the best results because it's gotten you the best results in the past. Then you want to turn and take a look at your worst performing content. So again, what format is it in? What's the tone or persona? Where does it live on your site? Take a look at all of that stuff. Then you want to consider possibly removing it from your site. If it's not helping, it could be hindering, but always with the goal of fixing it up and getting it back on your site. So take a look at it. How does it compare to the best performing content, and make those changes. Once you've taken a look at your best and worst content, then you want to find areas where you're missing content. A couple places you can first look for that are just your key benefits. What services do you provide? What sets you apart from your competition? All of the things that make you and your company special and unique. Make sure you have content around each of those items. If you don't, jot it down, and then take a look at any new service offerings. Since you last put content up, do you have a new product? Are you, offering any add-on services that you weren't in the past? Make a list of those. Then take a look at more, news and current event type things. So are there any shifts in your industry, any new trends coming out? Have you addressed any of those through content? If not, add that to your list. And then current events. Right now at KME, we've done a lot of content and site changes around COVID-19 for our clients. It's important to be in that conversation. So take a look at current events and make sure you're adding a voice to those things with your perspective. So once you've got a list of the content that you're missing, start to develop content around these topics. So blogs, white papers, social posts, really whatever has performed best for you in the past, look to make the content in that format. You want to highlight your strengths, you want to provide thought leadership in your industry, and provide a unique perspective on things going around in the world. Then you want to take a look at any content that you can repurpose. So what content is, the best for repurposing? We like to turn our clients' attention to their evergreen content. This is going to be anything that's never going to go out of date. It's always going to be relevant to your clients. So first, maybe go through your inventory again and label those things that you would classify as evergreen. Then also take a look at your best performers. Clearly this content does well for you, so make a list of that for repurposing. And then take a look through any blogs or anywhere on your site that you make use of lists and develop some content around each item within that list. It's a really good way to saturate that space. Where and how to repurpose. So on your website. That's the best place to do that because it's going to help your users and it's going to help search engines. Then consider crossing formats. So if you have a blog that has done really well, consider publishing a white paper around that content. Or maybe if you have white papers or really popular service pages, consider hosting a webinar about those. And then make sure you're pushing things out on your social platforms. So take a look at your best performing content. Did that go out on your Facebook, your LinkedIn? If not, that's a great place to start. So we always recommend repurposing. If you go to the next slide, there are a couple of reasons that repurposing is a good benefit for you. The first, ultimately, is that it saves time. Content generation can be a really time-consuming process. So being able to repurpose stuff that you've already got and things that you know perform really well is going to help you save a ton of time. It also boosts SEO. So, you've got those keywords and areas that you really want to make sure you're showing up for. Pushing out additional content around those is really going to help saturate those keywords and make sure you're showing up for them. It also allows you to reach a new audience, as the people who saw it the first time around likely are going to be different from those who are seeing it this time around. And it's a great way to emphasize messaging. Repetition is a great way to get things to sink in. So repurposing content is a really good way to drive those messages home to your clients. I believe we are going to open up for questions right now. So Alicia, I will toss that to you.
Sure, thank you. It looks like we have a couple questions here. The first one is, what are a few ways that my business can research popular content topics in my industry?
So the first thing we always like to do for our clients is just run through your key offerings, your key benefits. Those are the things you want to show up for in searches. So make sure you've got content for all of those things. Also looking at your competitors, what content are they pushing out, and consider doing that too. You can also just perform simple Google searches around, the things that you have to offer and see what content is out there.
Okay, great, thank you. And one more, it looks like, so you touched on SEO a bit. How can I figure out the best keywords for my website?
Okay, that's a good question. And again, it kind of goes hand in hand with deciding what content to develop. You know, you're going to optimize your content for SEO, so the two kind of go hand in hand. So again, take a look at what competitors are doing. Again, do a simple Google search, see what content is triggered by those searches. You can also do the search and then scroll down to the bottom of the page. Google will provide some similar and, you know, similar searches that people are doing around those topics. So consider using those for keywords. Those are a couple really easy ways to find keywords to optimize for.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's all the questions we have for now, but if people have more questions, again, please feel free to put them in and we can certainly address them at the end as well. Otherwise, next up, we've got Colin May.
Awesome. If you could move to the next slide, Alicia. So you probably noticed that a lot of people have gotten turned up the effort on their social media postings, and so we've come up with a couple of suggestions on how to create consistent postings, but also maximizing your reach as you're adding to the conversation within the social media space. So if you could advance the slide, Alicia. So the first suggestion we'll make is just start a calendar. A social media calendar is like the Marie Kondo of your entire social media strategy. It may seem difficult at first, but in the end, it's going to save a lot of time and effort and any sort of unnecessary headache in the future. It allows you to be consistent and commit to a regular frequency. It also allows you to plan ahead, avoid mistakes, and improve quality. We always suggest starting with a Google Sheet. It's easily shared amongst team members. They can go in and add their own posts, make any sort of edits or comments, and then you can just go and copy and paste from your Google Sheet into whatever social media profile or platform that you've deemed as necessary for your business. In addition to that, having a content library of all of your assets is super important. You can use a Google Drive or a Dropbox. We're sharing these massive media files on social media, so it's nice to have those housed in one location. And so as your team is developing content posts, they can easily pull or add to that Drive or Dropbox while they're developing their posts. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So the next suggestion is just evaluating any social content that you've put out in the past. So it's a similar process to the content evaluation that you're conducting on your website. The who, what, when, where, and why are super important. So who is your audience? I mean, if there are any sort of demographic traits or habits that you're aware of, it's important to take note of those. What are they interested in, right? Are they interested in the people within your company? Is it the industry updates and news? Or are they in it for their own personal gain? So, adding to their own knowledge or getting them back to your website to read through a blog that might be of benefit to them. When are they available? So timing is a big piece of social media. If you think of LinkedIn versus like Facebook and Instagram, so LinkedIn is a very professional network and people aren't really engaging outside of the hours of 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. Facebook and Instagram are much more social in their nature. So you have more people engaging on Saturdays and Sundays because they've had this amazing weekend or experience and they've posted about it. And now they want to scroll through their feed and see, what is everybody else up to? So that actually might be a good time for you to post onto these channels. Where do they engage? So a tried and true, starting lineup is your Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, right? Those have a majority of the users in the social media space. Occasionally we'll get questions about TikTok and Snapchat. It makes sense for some businesses, but I would say for the majority of businesses, it doesn't make sense. Unless you're like in the family fun space, TikTok, for example, has a really young user demographic. the why are you doing this, right? Identifying your purpose. You know, what are you hoping to provide those users or audience members? And to address all of these questions, you know, you can start by evaluating your past posts, right? So take a look at your page insights and analytics. Those are your friends. Specifically on interaction and reach. How have those posts performed, right? And who has seen them? Once you categorize those top performers, take a look at the tone in which you've written, the time of day when you posted, the content type. Did you add on to a series and were people kind of following along? On the other side of that, evaluating any missing content is super important, right? So what's driving users back to your website? That's a good question. So it goes back to the content that exists on our website and looking at our analytics. What are our top performing pages? So if people are landing on a certain page on your website, chances are you're looked at as like an authority or an expert source in that subject matter. So it would likely make sense to develop some social posts around that. And so that's just a matter of identifying the best performing site content. And what's trending in your industry, and beyond that, what's happening in the news, right? The last thing we want in a social media effort is to come off as tone deaf. If you want to move to the next slide. So we have our calendar set up, you know, we have a few content ideas, and we need to grow our followers, because if we're going to be posting into the social media space, we have to have followers to receive any sort of engagement. I'm of the school of thought where you should invite all of your friends or connections to like your business page. You know, if they're your friends, they should like your business. I'm sure there's plenty of people that would disagree with me. But you know, you have to build up that audience in order to get engagement and really maximize the reach of each of these posts that you're putting out into the space. Empowering your employees to do the same, right? Inviting their friends to like their page and letting them post, right? So if they have their friends as a part of your audience on social media, they'll want to hear from that particular person. There's a great case study out there from Maersk Shipping Containers, which is not necessarily sexy when it comes to social media content, but a few years ago, they were able to grow their following by 400,000 people by implementing some of these strategies and empowering employees to provide their own sort of thought leadership. So as questions would come in, like, you know, what happens when there's a storm that comes through, where do the ships go? And somebody would get on a video within that department, whoever handled the dispersing the ships, and answer that question authentically. You know, what we do is we send them out to sea, because if they're at port, the ships will be destroyed. And that became really engaging content for users. Also, you know, the idea of running a contest comes up. You can do that both internally or with some of your clients or prospects, I guess. So internally, you know, you're running a competition and providing some sort of point value for people to post about the company or provide posts for the company. You know, whoever is getting the most reach or engagement, you know, they're getting some sort of prize at the end of the month. All right, so engaging messaging. So it's always important to be authentic, be real, be human, and communicate genuinely. You know, people want to hear from you. I say this all the time to our clients. They want to see an inside look of your business. You know, what is it like at the day-to-day at KME? Offer a unique perspective. Stand out so you can be noticed. You want to be the go-to resource and try to offer something no one else does. Always remember that visuals enhance your communication. Believe it or not, people don't love reading. So having some sort of graphic element tied into your social post is super important. Those big, long social posts that we put out there, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of people that aren't reading those. You know, they're looking for the graphics in order to engage. So just keeping that in mind, you know, is always important. I'm going to go to the next slide. So being relevant, right? Again, you know, kind of, I said it, you know, you don't want to come off as tone deaf. So making your content timely is super important. timely and relevant content leads to higher levels of engagement. Staying on top of any sort of current events and being aware of what is motivating your audience, and giving people a reason to engage. You want that content to be informative, entertaining, and enticing people to share that with their network. So with all that, I think we're going to be breaking for questions. So did any come in?
Yes, we've got several here. So you touched on this a little bit. I don't know if you want to add to it, but when you start a new business page, what's the most effective way to gain likes, follows, to build an audience?
Yeah, so I think reaching out to any of your connections and requesting that they like or follow the page, that's a piece of low-hanging fruit. So we have, in some cases, thousands of friends on Facebook. And when you set up a business page, you can send a message to every single one of them to like your page. So that's a quick way to get, a couple hundred likes on your Facebook page. It's also possible on LinkedIn to invite people within your network to follow that page. So that's another suggestion or a free way to get those likes and follows.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is, how do you find a balance between providing valuable content for existing clients and marketing for prospects on social media channels?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's a matter of balancing the sales side of it, right? Which is getting people back to your website or getting them to lean in. And also giving them that authentic look of what it's like within the culture of your business, right? So I do think it's important to mostly cover the day-to-day inside of your business and maybe break it up in like an 80-20 purport or I guess distribution of like 80% in internal efforts and thought leadership, what's going on within your space, and then 20% salesy. Just because people are more likely to engage with, the people within your business versus like, hey, sign up for this, or, reach out to us for, an intake call or whatever your call to action would be there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Here's a good question. So if a company had an old personal Facebook page that they used for small business and their posting kind of fell off, should they abandon it completely and start over, or do you suggest that they change the one they have so that they retain followers?
So I think I would never suggest like getting rid of all your followers. In some cases, like, we've worked with people in the past where they have two Facebook pages, right? They've created this new Facebook page, but they also have an old Facebook page. So what you can do is actually you can merge the two. So that's just a matter of like submitting a request to Facebook. It does take like a couple of days to a week to get that done. But that would be my suggestion is merging the two, or, updating the older one instead of starting from scratch.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And I love this question because I kind of often wonder it myself. I hear it a lot. But so how do I know if I have Google Analytics on my site, and how can I install it?
So there's a couple of ways that you can go about that. So if you go onto your website, you can do a Control-U, which will open up the source code for your site. And then if you do a Control-F, which is a find function, and you type in UA-, that'll pull up the analytics code on the back end. If it doesn't, then you don't have it. Probably a simpler way to do that is if you have a Gmail that's associated with your business, type in google.com/analytics. If you have something, if you have an analytics account set up, it should pull up your website information. So those are probably two ways that you can go about doing it. But if anybody does have a question about that, I'm happy to take a look at the site.
Okay, great. Thank you. And this one I hear all the time. I know you touched on it a little bit, trying to piggyback on when people are paying the most attention, especially right now. But do you kind of have a rule of thumb when you think the best time of day is to post on like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram? Is each one the same? Do they differ a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a timing component to it. Like I said, with LinkedIn, it's a more of a professional network. So, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That tends to be when people are on LinkedIn the most. Facebook and Instagram tend to be more social. So the users actually max out over the weekend when people are kind of out and about and sharing their experiences. So it definitely depends on your industry and when or who your audience is. So, but I think in general that would be my advice.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is another good question. So how do you decide on a boost or versus like an ad budget? Or how do you decide whether you want to boost a post and like how much you should pay for things?
A boost or an ad budget. So, if you have a post on your Facebook, for example, and you want to put a few dollars behind it, you can absolutely boost it. If you're running like a long-term advertising campaign, we tend to recommend staying in the ad space. But the two are similar in that you can like target specific demographic traits within Facebook or and so just again identifying who is your target market, who do you want to get in front of is super important even when you're looking at advertising efforts.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for all that awesome advice. That's all the questions we have for now. But again, if you have any more, please type them in and we'll address them as soon as we can.
Sounds good.
All right. So with that, again, thank you, Colin, so much. And now we're moving on to Chris Flick. Chris?
All right, thanks, Alicia. So the next and final segment here that we'll be reviewing is just reaching out for reviews. And I know this kind of seems a little self-explanatory or a little common to some, but this is something that can really help boost your online visibility and just overall prominence online. So in the next slide, we're talking about just the overall importance of online reviews. And as you can probably know, they're becoming more and more essential to decision making. I know me personally, I don't ever really buy anything or purchase a service online without looking at reviews first. And for most consumers, an online review is just as important as a personal recommendation. Not to say like the word of mouth referrals, it doesn't hold its weight, because it definitely does. But you just want to make sure that that loyal customer that is spreading your word from of mouth, you want to make sure that whatever they're saying is also correlating to what's being said about you online. And just in general, positive reviews make consumers just trust a local business or any business just even more. And then the next point is just how to ask, right? I know this could be a little bit of an awkward conversation, or maybe, you just finished up with a job and you said, hey, can you leave us a review? And they're like, yeah, no problem. But then they never actually follow through. So here are just a couple of practices that you can probably implement that can help facilitate that follow through. So the first thing is just to give a follow-up call. And this is a good practice for anything. It's just to give a follow-up call, ask them how their experience was. Hopefully it's all positive and glowing, and which you can go ahead and tee up the next steps. But maybe it happens to be negative, and you can save yourself from that customer going online and leaving you a bad review. When to ask is at the peak of their happiness, right? So job was just finished, they're super happy, they're super satisfied with all the work, then you can easily, ask that question. And when you're asking, let them know that they're doing you a favor and that they're helping your business out and how much that favor means to you and your business. People want to help other people, especially during these uncertain times. They're willing to do whatever they can to help a business in need. And just to kind of cap off like your conversation when you're asking, is just let them know that you're looking forward to reading their review. It just adds another layer of trust to let them know that you're on the lookout for it. And then in the next slide is a question that we get a lot, is, where should I send my customers, right? Should I just have them email me, or should we just add it to our website? But in general, we always recommend to push people to third-party review sites. People tend to trust reviews that are on those third-party review sites much more than on your own personal website. Because if you're manually adding reviews to your site, you're probably never going to add a negative review, right? So with these third-party sites that are moderated by somebody that's not affiliated with the company, definitely carry a little bit layer of trust there. And in this next slide, we're actually going through, the popular, third-party platforms, because then it's just like, well, which platform should I send it to? And if you ask me, and probably anyone here at KME, we'll always say Google should be the number one priority. It's definitely starting to be more and more prominent within search results, especially within like the map section too. So if anybody's requesting directions to your business, typically pull up your reviews as well. So you definitely want to make sure that those, look good there and put the most focus there towards Google. But then as far as, what's the next list of priority sites, is just do a search for your company name. Put yourself in the shoes of your customer or prospect rather, and see what they would see if they're like, okay, I'm thinking about, looking into this company. Let me see what the reviews look like. And they just Google search your name. See what comes up in search results. Typically your website will come up first. Then maybe it's your Facebook profile, maybe it's your Yelp account, and just make sure those profiles, look good. And that's where I would focus the most of your efforts. Something else to note with Google My Business reviews is that they'll sometimes pull from other review platforms as well. So you'll have your Google reviews that were posted on Google, but maybe they'll pull like your Facebook reviews towards the bottom. And sometimes they even pull like industry specific review sites. Like we have a mover client where they pulled like mymoverreviews.com to their profile. So just make sure you're looking at that and see what all those other review sites are saying about you. And then just another thing to just keep in mind when you're doing that ask is just make it as easy as possible for that customer. People are lazy these days. They don't want to take any unnecessary steps. So with Google and other review sites, you can create like a direct link directly to writing a review. So what we do for a lot of our clients is we'll create like a shortened link, typically make it branded. So it's just a short, easy way that somebody can type in and go directly to writing a review. And then the next point is how to deal with the negative reviews, right? So, I mean, it happens, we're not perfect. We do occasionally, we'll see, a negative review come in. And the first step that we always recommend is to respond properly. For me, when I'm looking at reviews, I look at the negative reviews first. And then when I see that a response from the business owner trying to fix that situation that somebody had a problem with, definitely kind of totally discredits that review. It definitely shows that if anything were to go wrong, the business will do everything they can to make that right. And when you're writing that response, write it like a person, kind of like Colin mentioned with the social posts and being genuine. You want to think about the same way for your responses as well. And to also be consistent, not only with your messaging, but just the frequencies that you're replying to your reviews. You don't want to respond to only a select few. You want to make sure that you're being consistent. General best practices is just go ahead and reply to all of them, even the positive ones, just like thank them for leaving the review. It definitely shows that the business is willing to help. Another thing that doesn't hurt is to flag the review. Like Google and Yelp, I know you can flag your review for either being like off topic or inappropriate. In which case, sometimes if Google's able to pick up that somebody violated the guidelines, then they would actually they could remove that review. And then the next step is to maybe ask them to take it offline. If you have that customer's information, you could reach out to them and give them a call and try to solve that problem, maybe over the phone. And then if you can come to a solution, then maybe you can ask them to remove their review. And I think that is it for the asking for reviews. So are there any questions?
Yes, Chris, thank you. So I've got a question here. What types of questions do I ask to provide a robust answer? So what questions should I be asking my clients, to get them to give good answers, if you will?
Sure. I mean, so really you want to make sure that the people that you ask to leave your reviews had a good experience, right? So that would be kind of where the follow-up call will come take, the best steps is just, figuring out like, did they have a positive experience? And then, if they did, then it would be a perfect time to ask. You don't want to ask somebody who had like a mediocre or not a great experience, because then they may be saying something that you don't really want. there's some softwares out there that, I mean, we didn't mention that because this is free strategies, but there are some softwares out there that do kind of some of those questions where maybe they, ask for their overall experience, and if it's, above, if they are good experiences, then they'll send them like the links to their review sites. Or maybe it's not good, in which case they'll send them to, a feedback form where they can give their feedback directly to the company that's not necessarily public.
Okay, great, thank you. And that might tie into this as well a little bit. So we've got a question. When a business experiences a negative online response to a recent corporate change, how do you best manage an influx of upset patrons and customers beyond taking it offline every time?
Well, I mean, I guess just to try to make sure your customer service is on point, you're having positive experiences, right? And, again, I think the follow-up call really helps a lot of that. You want to beat them to the punch. So like if the job was just finished, you want to make sure that you follow up with that customer just to make sure that they had a great experience. And if they didn't, try to do whatever you can possible to fix that so that they don't get pushed to leaving that negative review.
Right. It sounds like this is spawning from recent corporate change. So maybe just try to get out as much positive information beforehand, like prepare people for what's going to come so that they can kind of expect it. So hopefully they don't react in a negative way because they sort of saw it coming, and maybe they will contact you personally.
Right.
Reviews. Okay. I've got a couple more here. This is interesting. So I have several reviews on Yelp, but the majority are filtered. What's the best way to deal with that?
Yep, I know we get that, all the time. People are so frustrated with Yelp. So they do filter out reviews pretty strictly. Yelp does. Google isn't as strict with their filtering process. With Yelp, what you want to do is so Yelp looks for people who are common Yelpers, right? They have reviews in the past. They've left reviews on other businesses. It's kind of like a social network. So you can have like friends within Yelp, and they look for people like that. Just to kind of prevent people who may be creating, say, fake accounts just to kind of, either put a bunch of negative comments on someone's profiles. But, I always say to then just push to the other platforms. Like I said, like Google and Facebook, they aren't as strict with their filtering processes.
Okay, very good to know. This is a little bit similar to the analytics question, but so how do I know if I have access to my Google business profile, and is there a way to claim my listing?
Yes. So to figure out if you have access, it's kind of similar to what Colin explained with analytics. If you can think of any Gmail accounts that you used when you initially set up your company, or if you've ever noticed in any of your inboxes that you've been getting some automated emails mentioning Google My Business, it will most likely be under that. But what you can do is if you're logged into that profile and you go to business.google.com, your listing would show. Otherwise, it would say, sign up. And if you don't have access to it, there is ways to claim it. So you go to business.google.com, you type in your company's name, and then you click on the profile. If it is already claimed, it will show you like this listing has already been claimed, and it'll give you like a hint of the email. Typically, it'll give like the first two letters of the email and like the domain for the email. So hopefully that will kind of refresh your memory on, maybe where that is located. But if it doesn't, there is reclamation steps where you can reclaim the profile, which it takes about a couple weeks, where you request access. If you don't get response within a week or so, then you get the opportunity to prove your verification with the company. Either that requires sending like a postcard to the business address with a verification code on it, or sometimes you can get away with sending a verification email to an email on your website domain.
Okay, wonderful. All right, that's all the questions we have, but if you guys would like to continue putting in a few questions, we thank you for that, Chris. Colin and Catherine, do you have any last remarks that you want to share?
No, I think we're good. So, I mean, if anybody has any questions, we hope you'll reach out. you know, the goal is we want to be helpful during these difficult times. So, you know, any way that we can help you or your business, please let us know.
Okay. Awesome. Well, again, thank the three of you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Catherine. This was awesome information. I know that people will want to play this back and take down all those notes if they didn't catch them before. Hopefully this helps everyone in general and during this time. Definitely appreciate the information. So again, once again, I just wanted to thank BB and the Reston Community Center and Ellen and BEI for supporting us, and thank you all, KME. You do so much for us as well, so we definitely appreciate all the support of the Reston Chamber. Otherwise, thank you again for joining us, and stay safe and take care. Thank you, everyone.